Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Me. In this video, we're going to look at the top 17 tips and tricks for editing cells and cell contents within Microsoft Excel. We'll look at things like instantly editing an active cell with the keyboard shortcut F2. We'll look at how to insert and edit comments with things like Shift F2. We'll look at how to select one character within a string of characters, as well as individual words or perhaps even things like text to the beginning of a cell or to the end of a cell. We'll look at instant ways to delete part or all of the content of a cell, and then how to create a line break or start a new line in the same cell with things like Alt-Enter. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and join us in this video. All right, let's get started. All right, so first order of business is one of my favorite keyboard shortcuts, that of F2. So if you want to get into a cell, sometimes you can double click. Other times you might think about coming up here into the formula bar and editing. But what I love to do is just use the keyboard shortcut F2. Pressing the F2 function key will allow you to automatically get into the back end, the edit mode here in the cell. So notice that when you're on top of a cell, it says ready. When you're in a cell, it says edit. So if you want to get into edit mode and perhaps change or modify either the contents of a cell or the formatting of a cell, you can just press F2. And then we might change this to something like 600. Press enter, and those changes would be made. So again, that was F2. Would allow us to instantly get into the edit mode of a cell. So F2 is super, super useful. This also works with text. So we could come up here and we could say, change this to something like 13 week. We could write out 13. 13 weeks. I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to undo. Now, if you are editing a cell, so let's say maybe go to this cell and we're making some changes, we press F2, we're making some changes, and I realize that I don't want those changes to be applied. You can easily use the keyboard shortcut of escape. Pressing the escape key will revert back to the original value of your cell before you started making those changes. So we press the escape key. Now next, if you want to insert a comment, we can do this by coming to the cell that you want to come here, or that you want to insert a comment for, and then you would press the Shift key and the F2 function key. That would automatically create a comment. You'll notice that you have the user or the user's initials. Here it's TAT, which are my initials. You could add the comment. Then when you are done making those changes, you press the escape key and those changes are applied. So now when we scroll over the cell, it's going to have that comment. Now, if you want to edit a comment, you would scroll to the cell that has the comment in it, and then you can press the Shift key and the F2 function key. So we can modify the comment. Press the escape key a couple times and that comment has been modified. So if a cell does not have a comment, you press Shift F2 and it would create a comment. And then if it has a comment, you would go ahead and press Shift F2 and you could modify that comment. So Shift F2 will modify a comment. Press the escape key and it would change that. Now what if you want to delete a comment? If you want to delete a comment, you would select the cell or cells with the comments you want to delete. So I'll select these two cells. Once I've selected those cells, you press the Shift key and the F10 key. That would bring up the shortcuts menu. And then you can either use your mouse to come down here and click delete comments, or as I'm going to do, you can just use the M key. So M would automatically delete those comments. So let's again select this cell with the comment. You press Shift F10 and then M to delete the comment. That comment's gone. Here again, we press Shift F2 to modify the comment. We decide that this isn't a great place for a comment or the comment is no longer needed. We press Shift F10 and then the letter M as in Mary, and we delete that comment. So that's how we deal with comments. Now what if we are here and we want to modify some text? If we are here and we want to modify some text, we have a couple of different ways to do that. If you press the, well, let's use a better example. So let's think about how to do this. So let's move this down a second. Let's merge this. Copy, paste. All right, so now we have some text, and we'll just delete this for a second. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at how to modify the contents of this cell. Now, if you want to essentially select one character at a time, you would place your cursor where you want to select a character, and then press the Shift key and the right arrow. That would select one character at a time to your right. You can see what's happening in the formula bar. You can then say modify those colors, something like blue. Now, if you want to do it in the opposite order and select one character at a time and move left, you would press Shift left arrow. Maybe change that again to a blue. Then if you want to select one word or move one word at a time, you press Ctrl right arrow. Ctrl left arrow will jump between words in the opposite direction. So Ctrl right arrow and Ctrl left arrow, pretty useful. Now if you want to select individual words one at a time, you press Ctrl Shift right arrow. Maybe change it all to blue. Or Ctrl Shift left arrow would allow us to select words in the opposite direction. Maybe we'll change it to green. Now, what if you want to select everything between where you are now and the beginning? You press Ctrl Shift Home. Maybe increase the text, or between where you are now, let's say you're here, and you want to select everything to the left, you would go ahead, place your cursor there, Ctrl Shift End, and we could maybe change the size of that font. Now, there are also some interesting implications of using things like the keyboard shortcut Ctrl Delete. So if you press Ctrl Delete, it will delete everything to the right of your cursor. So if we wanted to delete everything after Apple Inc., we put our cursor after Apple Inc. and we press Ctrl Delete. I'm gonna hit Ctrl Z to undo that series of changes, or those series of changes, the series of changes, whatever that was. I'm gonna undo it with Ctrl Z. All right, so if you want to delete individual characters, you can do that by using the backspace, and that will delete a character, one character at a time to the left of the cursor. If you want to delete characters one at a time to the right of the cursor, you would press and delete with the delete key on your keyboard. So there are a couple of ways to delete characters. Lastly, I'm going to hit Escape to undo those changes. If you wanted to create a line break, essentially a place in your cell that more or less formats with its own line, you can do this by, let's go into the cell by pressing F2, Control right arrow a couple times in order to get here. And we want to put basically a line break between the word statement and stock. So where our cursor is now, we want everything to the right of that cursor to be on its own line. We would do this by pressing the Alt key and Enter key. That would automatically create a line break like that. And we press Enter, and it would appear in that way. So kind of a cool trick that will give you a little bit more control than if you had said wrap your text. So again, the way that we did that was Control Z, Control Z. We decided we wanted a line break. We pressed the Alt key and the Enter key, and it would create that line break. We then might have to adjust the formatting so that there is enough space for these individual items. So, all right, that includes the 17 keyboard shortcuts, which will allow you to more effectively edit and cells and cell contents. We looked at things like editing the active cell with F2. We then looked at making changes or canceling those changes with hitting the Escape key. We then looked at Shift F2 to enter a comment, Shift F2 to modify. We might want to delete comments with Shift F10 and then the M key. Let's see if we can do that again. Shift F10 and then the M key. I guess if there's some formatting, we might have to hit M a second time and go to delete comment. We then looked at scrolling between and or selecting individual characters' words with things like coming up here, Control right arrow, Control left arrow, Control shift arrow, or Control end, Control home, Control shift end, Control shift home. There are lots of different things that we looked at. So, all right. If you have any comments, any ideas, any suggestions, go ahead and post them in the comment section of this video. If you're interested in watching another section of this series, we will look at the idea of using spell check, help, and other features, things like the thesaurus dialog box and the help menu within Microsoft Excel, as well as the keyboard shortcuts for do and undo within Excel. So join us for that, and we will see you again soon. All right, thanks for watching, and bye for now.